Now, the feminist movement has been around for quite a while, and only a few of us know the real origins and roots of it, and how it came into existence. So we'd like to start off the session with a brief history of feminism, so that we very clearly know where does it stem from, what are its origins, what is the actual history of this movement, of this ideology. So over to you, Sister Khalid.
Yes, Jazakumullah khair. That's a wonderful question. I think one of the most important things that we as Muslims need to know about feminism is its origin. How did it start? Where did it start? Who started it, right? So I think those are all questions that are fair questions. And once you know the answer, you kind of begin to already look at feminism differently, once you know where it came from. So, the thing that's important for us to realize is feminism was not started by women, which is shocking and very ironic. And this is something that makes modern feminists very angry if you say that, if you remind them of this reality. But the reality is that men were actually, certain men, a certain segment of men were the first feminists. How is that possible? Men who were white, European, Christian, generally of a Christian background, basically decided to embark on this whole colonial project, right? Feminism is actually an offshoot of the colonialist project. And it wasn't just, to colonize Muslims and Muslim lands. Colonialism hit all over the globe, different societies and different cultures and nations all over the earth. And basically what happened is in the 1800s, when colonialist powers really started seeking to, just kind of land grab, right? Get more and more land, look for resources to empower their own countries and become rich off of other nations, which we also know as theft, stealing, right? So this is what was going on in the 1800s, and the biggest countries to do this colonialist project were Britain, France, the Netherlands, Portugal, and other European countries, or Western Europe. And so what happened was these nations, when they wanted to go to not just Muslim nations, they attacked Muslims, Chinese, Indians, Aboriginals in Australia, and different places all over in different continents. What they did was they had to think of a reason. You can't just go up to someone and say, hey guys, we're here to just pillage your land, steal all your resources, rape some of your women, and kill off some of your men. Are you going to welcome us? No one is. That's not going to fly, right? That's not going to work for anybody. So they had to come up with a pretext. This was a pretext for war and for invasion. And what pretext was that? These are savages. These countries, these Muslims, these Mohammedans in Libya or in Egypt or in India or in whatever country they wanted to enter, they would say, these men are savages. We have to civilize the savage. And this is our burden. They call this, to this day, the term is the white man's burden. The white man's burden means the white man who's enlightened and rational and smart. He has to go off to all corners of the globe and just civilize the savages who are not as smart as him. They don't have the IQ that he does as a white man. So they are savages. And what's the proof of that? The fact that they're savage and barbaric is look how they treat their women. Their women are wearing niqab, their women are wearing hijab, their women are in the home, and they're not seen by the colonizer, by the white colonizer. So they must be oppressed. If I can't see you and you're tucked away at home, nestled in the home, and you're safe from me, from my reach and my eyes, then you must be oppressed. These men are oppressing you. So this was that rhetoric. This is the very, very beginning of what feminism really is. And this is where it really started. This is that idea, that germ of an idea, that seed, because it's like a plant. And every plant has a seed. This is the root. And then it grows and gets bigger. And then you can really see the fruits of it. The seed was here in the 1800s with these people, these colonizers. So they used women as like a thing to get their foot in the door. This is how we're going to attack. We're just going to accuse them of oppressing their women. So they did. And then they were able to wreak all kinds of havoc, steal, rape, kill, all of these things. Then what happened was, this is the very interesting part, is that basically it got turned around on them. How? White Western women then started to look at their own men and say, wait a minute, you're talking about trying to save these Muslim women and these Chinese and Indian women from their savage husbands and their men who are oppressing them. You're oppressing us. you know? So then it became this farce where it got turned around on the white man who came up with this idea and who invented it for his own use. Then his woman now is looking at him like, you're oppressing me. The church is oppressive, and we generally know this as the first wave of feminism. So if you guys know anything about feminism, you might have heard that feminism has different waves. We hear first wave feminism, second wave feminism, third wave feminism, right? And some people say today we're kind of at the beginning of or on the cusp of the fourth wave of feminism. But generally, we know that there are waves. And the zero wave, what I like to call the zero wave, is that male invented myth or accusation against Muslims that they are savages oppressing their women. So we have to go save them, meaning go into their lands, right, and take whatever we want. So that was the zero wave of feminism. And no one talks about this. No one. Feminists today will say, oh, first, second, third wave. No one will ever identify that zero wave. Then the first wave is when the white women started to say, oh, you are oppressing us. They were mostly against the church. Why? Because the Christian clergy, and they had a specific clergy class of priests and, even for other religions like the rabbis, for Jewish women, etc. They had certain things that they denied women. Women couldn't be priests. Women didn't have certain rights. In basically across history, especially Christian history in Europe, the rabbis or the priests were basically had these theological debates about whether or not women had souls. The ruh, what we know as the ruh. They were not sure if a woman had a soul. A man had a soul, but did a woman? They didn't know. They had to think about it and have all these long debates about it. So all of these things, women were inherited like a cow. So a man would die and he would leave behind 2 cows and a woman, and everything would get inherited. The cows would get inherited and the woman would get inherited, like property, right? Women didn't have access to their own property. They couldn't own anything, etc., etc. And so these women, they turned around to their white men, these white women, and they said, you are abusing us. And the church is patriarchal. This is the patriarchy, meaning men are in charge and men are using this authority that they have over women to oppress women and to be unjust. And they had all these grievances that have nothing to do with Islam. We don't have a church in Islam. We don't have these crazy barbaric laws that the Christians did. So the Christian women were unhappy and they rebelled against the church. And one thing that'll really give you an idea of how anti-religion these women were and how atheistic and God-hating they were. They hated God. One prominent feminist, this is one of the founders of feminism, her name is Elizabeth Blackwell. She wrote a book that she called The Women's Bible. The Women's Bible, because the Bible was patriarchal and misogynistic, and she hated the Bible because look at what God has said in the Bible. God is a male and everything is male biased and male focused. So she wrote her own women's Bible for women. So this is how it starts. Then the second wave feminists came along years later, and they were concerned with other things, but it progressed, right? They got worse and worse, more and more demanding, and they had different demands and things. So the second wave feminists, they were concerned more with the idea of gender roles being a social construct. So they were saying, there are no such thing as men have to do this, this, and this, and women have to do this, this, and this. Anyone can do anything. You can be a man and take care of children and be just as nurturing as a mother, as a man. And a woman can go and, earn money and she can provide for her family and not take care of children, not have to be in the home and do none of those things. She can do whatever, anyone can play whatever role they want. No one should tell us who should play what role. And so they said, this is a social construct. It has nothing to do with biology or the nature of men and the nature of women. So this was generally the idea of second wave feminism. Third wave feminism, this is even worse. Now they move on to, we have to be sex positive. We have to be body positive. We have to, if you've got it, flaunt it. If you guys have heard any of these slogans, I'm quoting the most famous widespread slogans of this wave, right? This third wave. If you've got it, flaunt it. Basically, if your body looks good, show it. Just show it off to people. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Don't be embarrassed. We have to be body positive. Our body is beautiful. So we have to make sure everyone sees it, right? All of these things. So promiscuity became a big thing. We can't shame anyone for sex. I don't know if you guys have heard of this idea of the slut walk, right? I'm not calling it that. That is the official name that feminists created for these marches, right? They call them slut walks. And basically they want to reclaim the word, the phrase, or, idea of a slut, right? Which is not an Islamic term. It's a very kind of derogatory and ugly term for a woman who's very, very promiscuous. So, but they were proud of that. They said, hey, this is empowering. This is what it means to be This is what it means for us to be liberated. We are intimate with whoever we want, anytime we want. We just go out and have intimacy, have sex with whoever. And you can't call me a slut. I'm reclaiming that term. So this is our slut walk or our slut march, right? So on and on and on. And this brings us to our present day and everything that is happening today, including this transgender stuff. If I identify as a woman, but I'm actually biologically a male, then you have to call me a woman. You have, my preferred pronouns. I'm a man, really, but I want you to call me she, her, and hers. These are my pronouns. And vice versa. I'm biologically a woman, but I think I'm a male. So you have to treat me like a man. Call me he and say him and his. These are my preferred pronouns, etc., etc. So this is a very brief, very abridged history of feminism, but just kind of getting us to understand the actual historical origins of this movement and how it kind of progressed through time.
Jazakallah. It has provided us a lot of insight into the actual history and origins of feminism, and I think a very brief explanation of where the roots lie of this ideology. I think many of us have been given a very newer understanding of what this word means, because we see that people describe it with in their very own terms. There are very different explanations of this ideology, varying from people to people, from groups to groups. But alhamdulillah, that you have given us a very thorough explanation and deep explanation of the actual roots of this ideology.